Whatever God tells you to do it to be obedient to Him. Don't do it for approval, and don't do it with the intention for people to pat you on the back, because some of the sacrifices and the things that you're making right now, it may not be appreciated. The things that you're doing right now, the sacrifices that you're making, the things that you're doing to obey God, some things people don't understand, they may not appreciate it. But just know, whatever you're doing now, maybe your children won't appreciate it. Maybe you will not reap the benefits or reap the seed of what you've sown by seeing it through your children, but maybe it'll come through your grandchildren. Maybe it'll come through the next generation. Whatever it is, just don't look for pats on the back. As humans, yes, you want to be appreciated. You want to be told, thank you, I appreciate you. And I'm not telling you to live a life where you should live to be abused and people should be impolite. That is not what I'm saying. But sometimes there's certain roads that you're going to walk on. There are paths that you're going to take that you're not going to get praises along the way. Rather, you're going to get frowns, the side eye. People are going to be looking at you like, what's wrong with you? They're going to say you're out of the will of God. They may accuse you of just not even knowing God. And sometimes the things that you're doing right now, let's say for your children, they don't understand it and they'll look down on you. Your family may look down on you. You may lose your friends. Your spouse may look down on you. Someone may break it up with you because they don't like what you're saying. But regardless of that, I want you to continue on. You know, David, he made his mistakes, but he was loved by God. He was a man after God's own heart. And David was really demonized by his son, Absalom. Absalom hated his father. And it was because of the way he believed. He looked at the lack of accountability that David had, the way he handled the rape of Tamar. Tamar was raped by the half brother. I believe, I can't remember his name, but he violated their sister, and Absalom was angry with David. And I could understand Absalom's anger. I would be angry too if that happened and then it appears that my parent is not doing anything, or this person, whether it's a parent or not, this violation, you're not going to do anything. But I don't believe that David wasn't going to do anything, but David was going to deal with things the way God wanted him to deal with it. And sometimes this can cause certain things, and events may cause a child's heart to change towards you. Okay, it may not be anything that volatile and that crazy. And in no way I'm saying that it's okay for parents to have not protected their children when they're being sexually violated or that type of stuff happens. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes it could be just something where I use that example to say that, look, David was a man after God's own heart, but his son had an issue with him. His son, his reason to me, he had a valid reason to be angry, but the way he went against his father was wrong. The way he wanted to kill his dad, the way he was trying to overthrow his brother and ensure that Solomon, who was the rightful heir, not to get the throne, it was wrong. He was being vindictive. But I'm using the example, let me bring it home. I'm using that example to say that sometimes even when and if when you're following the will of God, sometimes even your children will not appreciate it. Because, you know, Absalom wasn't around when David was battling and fighting and doing the things to make the life possible, the blessings of God. He didn't see the ups and downs, the highs and lows. He would not know those beginnings of his father. He sees him as king. He's born into a family. So sometimes they don't see what you've been through and where God has brought you from. Now, I want to be careful with this because there are parents who will do wrong things to their children. And then they're trying to say, oh, after all I've done. This is not what I'm saying. This is not the same thing. It's not something to throw in your child's face to justify bad behavior, because there are parents who do wrong things to their children. And then they're saying, oh, after all I've been through, to guilt the child. This is not what I mean. But what I'm saying is David had his ups and downs with the Lord, and he got to a place to do the things that he needed to do, and he started to grow in the Lord, and he was doing things for God, but yet his household was raggedy at times. Okay, and it wasn't because he had turned away from God, but because he followed God. He wasn't hasty in getting revenge. Even his nephews, David's nephews, Joash, I believe, and Asahel, they were mad at David because they wanted David to kill this guy who had been causing so much trouble and wouldn't even let David have the throne. He put somebody else on the throne, I believe, of Israel at the time. I think David was a king of Judah at one point, and then of Israel. There's this guy that was just really, he used to work for Saul, and he was causing a lot of problems. And they felt like David should have killed him, but David did not. So he was not appreciated for that. They did not understand what he was doing. And then even when David was, he fought and he was able to get the throne and all this good stuff. Even the good that he did, sometimes people will not appreciate it. They're not going to understand. Remember, David's wife, Michal, was looking at him like, ugh, she didn't appreciate him. Saul, for a time, appreciated him, but then he got jealous of him. David had to play mad, had to play crazy at some point, even had to run to the Philistines, who were the enemies of the children of Israel, to get away from Saul. So, nevertheless, David continued to worship God and praise God. And when you read the Psalm, you see a lot of things that David went through. He had his highs, his lows, his ups and downs. Sometimes it sounded like he was depressed. Sometimes he was like, Lord, just kill me and take me now. But he continued on. Nevertheless, he would look up to God. And look at us today reading about David being blessed by his Psalm. So his purpose went beyond his family. Now there were kings that were raised up in the line of, in David's lineage, that worshiped God and that served God. Hezekiah was one. King Joash was one. Just to select a few. Just to name a select few, but more evil ones came up, and people would have been like, David, what did you do wrong? But people made their own choices. They didn't appreciate what David was trying to establish and how he lived. But he continued on. And even though at times it looked as if he was not he's seeing things happening, and some things he did not live to see, but certain things continue to happen throughout his lineage. Even at some point, Solomon lost his glory being disobedient. He got it right after a while, but he got pulled away. Regardless of all those things, David's sacrifice and what he did and his steadfast desire to serve God opened the door for other people. Now they had to learn their own lessons. They had to learn to serve God on their own. Some they did willingly, others they learned the hard way. But nevertheless, David had a purpose, because today we are reading about David. Today, his writings, things that he just wrote, probably to himself, we are blessed by it. So the sacrifices that you've made, sometimes the people around you won't appreciate it and they won't understand it, but know that it's serving a purpose. And whether or not they appreciate you or not, whether or not they are praising you or not, and they're hugging you or not, stay the course. Keep doing what God has told you to do. Don't do things for like, shares, thumbs up, and pats on the back, and oh, this person is so great, because sometimes they're not going to do it. But know that not only are you doing it for the next generation, but for strangers that you don't even know. Does this make sense? I hope so. Bye. God bless.